Hello, 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 hello. Happy Women's Wednesday and welcome to Women in Blazers. We're so excited to have you be a part of our conversation. It's Women's History Month all month long, and we're so excited to dive into a lot of women conversations. I like to say well-timed and needed conversations, well-timed and needed conversations for a time such as this. And so I am joined today by some amazing women, Dr. Autumn Burton and also Dr. Erica McCrae. And so we're so excited to have these wonderful powerhouse women here to be a part of our conversation. Let me say this, they're both very unique and they have something in common that they both are professors and work in universities and higher education. And so I love that because I am a advocate for higher education. I am an educator by right. And so Elisha B. Cash loves to surround herself by smart Black women. And so today I have the pleasure of sharing this platform with two phenomenal women. I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves before we dive into tonight's conversation. Dr. Burton, will you share with everyone a little bit about yourself, please?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Again, my name is Autumn Burton, and I am currently a professor at Kennesaw State University, and I facilitate courses in cultural competence as well as human resource management and also nonprofit management. So I have been there since 2017 and absolutely love doing the work there. I also lead our inclusion training and design and delivery for McKesson Corporation. And there I get the opportunity to work with all the wonderful employees across McKesson and helping support their initiatives towards things like what we're talking about today, women, and also all of the other aspects of people of color, as well as anything you surrounding gender diversity, gender fluidity, all of those things you can think of that discusses and disabilities when we talk about inclusion and design. So that is my background. That is what I love. That is part of my research interest as well. So I have a few articles and publications on that same topic as well. So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I am Dr. Erica McCrae, and I am an adjunct professor at Beulah Heights University. I also work for Cricket now. I used to work for AT&T, but Cricket is a subsidiary of AT&T. I am a project manager there, been there for about 12 years, and I am also the CEO of a nonprofit called God's Purpose Over Everything. So I teach business and leadership courses at Beulah Heights, and I'm just grateful to be here. So thank you so much, Ms. Cash, for inviting me.
Lovely. And for those of you that are joining for the very first time, my name is Elisha B. Cash, and I am the host for the Women in Blazers show. I am also the founder and president of the National Women's Empowerment Ministry. I am the CEO of Jackson HR and Administrative Services, and I am the co-pastor of the Leadership Church. And so I love leadership, I love women, and I love doing what we're doing here today is having great conversations about prevalent and relevant issues. And so tonight we have two requests of you. If you're joining us, we just ask two little simple things and that I like to teach people. I said these are teachable moments. Like and share. If you like and share those two little simple things, if you're watching tonight and you hear something that is powerful, that is empowering you, and you believe that it can really help someone else, like it and share it. Let them know, because I think it helps us have a great, robust conversation. We want you to be a part of the conversation tonight. So please feel free to drop questions in the chat, drop fire emojis in the chat, whatever it is. You know, we love engagement and appreciate you being a part of the conversation. Well, again, welcome. Please let us know where you're from in the chat. We would love to know where you're from, what you do in your professions, how you're showing up in your spaces. We just kind of want to hear about you tonight as well. Our topic tonight It's Women in the Pipeline. Yesterday we celebrated International Women's Day, and today I had the privilege of being a part of a lean-in circle with three other women from. I think it was one lady. She was from New Zealand. She was from New Zealand, yes,
Wow.
and the other one was from the Philippines, and the other one from India. And so we had a wonderful conversation, wonderful time together. And believe it, even though we are from different places on this wonderful continent, the one thing we did have in common that we were all women and we shared women issues in the work.
Absolutely.
And it was a beautiful and wonderful experience. And I think that is what International Women's Day is all about. And so we still want to celebrate that particular day and continue the conversation about women in the pipeline, a very diverse conversation. So let's just go right ahead and lean into it. Um, I want to put out here tonight, how should companies develop a leadership pipeline, one filled with talented, ambitious, diverse groups of women at every stage of the journey. I know that both of you already shared the different companies that you work for. Let's go ahead and lean into the conversation and share your expertise on that.
Yeah, I'll kick us off, if that's okay. I'll say that, when you think about that, you start to say, well, what sort of is the solution, right, to a great pipeline? And I think that's where you build towards gender equity, right? And so, of course, it's that idea that there's equality between men and women, right? It doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that men and women have to become the same, but we're looking for diversity here. We're looking for the capacity for people to be who they are. And in that respect, of course, there are women who I think more than they feel. There are men who feel more than they think. And all kinds of combinations in between in terms of those rigid gender lines when you're thinking about leadership. So the question isn't that men and women should become the same. The question is, how do we open it up so that everybody, right, gets more rights, more responsibilities, more opportunities that aren't dependent upon gender, but they are dependent upon what you can bring to the table. So that means, do we have fair treatment? How do we have an equitable or a fair way of dealing with men and women according to whatever it is that they need in their journey to leadership? So this idea that we want people to have a rich life that allows them to be as fully and completely themselves as possible and not be bound by this demand that they have to fit within these gender stereotypes where they'll be, censored, or they'll lose status, or that they'll be threatened, right, if they step across those gender lines that are arbitrary and socially constructed, by the way. So of course, that means equal treatment, where treatment is different in terms of rights and benefits and obligations and truly just opportunities. I think that's how we start there. We start with the equality.
Absolutely. Just to piggyback off of Dr. Burton, for me, this has evolved in my tenure with AT&T. So we really had a shift when everything happened with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery. Like, our company really started looking at diversity and equality in a different way. So much so that I got an opportunity to be a part of a diversity team for my Cricket president. And they totally shifted the way in which we give promotions to people now. So one of the things that we were talking about just as women is that we don't feel as though there's any fair opportunity for us to advance like our counterparts, the men. So what they ended up doing, which I'm very grateful for, is allowing, first of all, you have to make it visible. You have to know the numbers. That's the first thing. So when they looked at the numbers and saw how many men are promoted over women, how many women of color are promoted over, women that are not colored, all of these different things, we looked and we're like, whoa, there's a whole lot of opportunity here. So then we had to take it back and say, okay, so what's missing? What's going on? And what you really realize is people will hire people and promote people that they know, and there's no process. So you don't even get to see the talent that's out there because you just know that Joe is your guy. He's always been your guy. So you want to promote him, but you have Dr. Burton over here that is well qualified, has more experience, and not even getting a seat at the table. So they had to take the bias out of it, and they put in so many different aspects. Now you can't just say, well, I'm going to interview this person and not interview this person without having specific detailed notes on why you did not select this person. So basically HR now is able to pull your file and say, okay, so this is how you ranked against all of these people. This is what they put on here. So you can no longer just go by, oh, I love this person, so I'm going to promote this person. And then I just want to say this, when we went through this whole exercise with my company, as an African-American woman and many of my counterparts basically were like, listen, we don't want this to be an exercise of reparations. We just want you to treat us how we're supposed to be treated and to pull our what we have, our credentials. If you put it side by side, you will see that we're qualified. We just want a fair opportunity. Don't try to just say, well, oh, there's only 2 African-American people, so we need to get 2 more. No, you just need to put it side by side and see that I have the qualifications more than the other person that you wanted to hire. So that has really helped us a lot. And I'm very grateful and appreciative of that because we needed to see those numbers. We knew, but when your company takes a step back and says, hey, let's make this public, let's show this to everybody, it just creates a greater appreciation. And for me, it was more so just let's just be integral. Let's see what's out there. And it wasn't mind-blowing to us because we knew, but seeing it on paper, it was just like, okay, yeah, we need to fix this. So it starts there, being fair across the board, just like Dr. Burton said, and giving us an opportunity. If you give me an opportunity, I can show you what I can do. But when you take that opportunity away from me, you tie my hands.
I love the fact that you opened up and you start talking about the data, because I am a data-driven person. And what we have learned as professionals, what gets measured is what gets done. So as soon as you are transparent about those numbers and those targets, then that allows people to kind of say, no, we're not just talking about our diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're actually putting something behind it because we want to improve the numbers. We want to be transparent with the data. We want to see the movement, the mark move, so we can't be in the same space next year. And I also love the fact that you mentioned about not just being a affirmative action space where we're trying to fill numbers, based off of that, but also to compare the talent, to say, no, give people a fair chance and opportunity. So wonderful. And so that leads me into one of the things that I often kind of want to help people see. Do you see or believe that we as women sometimes contribute to the lack of movement or progression to leadership? Are we stumbling blocks in our own paths? And I know that's huge.
It is.
It's huge, but it's a well-rounded conversation. And I just want to hear what you all have to say.
Yeah, I can start with this one. I can say, yes, sometimes that is the case. When you look at the data, men are more apt to apply for something that they don't even qualify for than women. So as women, and it's funny that we're having this conversation because I learned this, I think probably about 3 years ago on International Women's Day. So I went to a function and they talked about this. As women, we look at a job description and we say, okay, I have 5 of the 10. So I'm not even going to apply for this. A man will look at it and say, I have 2 pieces of this job description and I'm about to apply because this is my job. So now we've missed an opportunity and we are way more qualified than him, but he took the opportunity. So sometimes we do stand in our own way because we feel like we have to be perfect, and you do not have to be perfect. You just have to show up, and your qualifications speak for themselves. So the perfection piece of women oftentimes gets in the way of us going up that chain.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Dr. Burton? Thank you.
No, I agree with that, and it's interesting because we talk about this, believe it or not, in one of my courses, and I always tell my students that truly, if you think about it, since the mid '80s. Right. We think about the term empowerment and how that has become popular in the development field, and especially with reference to women. And the concept of women's empowerment is really the outcome of important critiques generated by the women's movement. If you think about it, International Women's Day yesterday, particularly if you think about what's required and the challenges of this whole patriarchal power relations that we have that results in women having less control over material assets and intellectual resources and things like that. But women, we participate in our oppression. So we've got to first become aware of the ideology that legitimizes this whole male domination. Right. You just heard Dr. McCrae say men go out and they apply for things and they are way less qualified than we are. And we sometimes typically sit at our offices and our workplaces and we do what I call gender tasks, right? Such as we'll take notes or we'll send cards to those who have birthdays and flowers, and we start planning the retirement parties. And we may actually enjoy doing these things, but the organizations that we work for, they don't actually reward us and even penalize us sometimes, right, for those things. Mm-hmm. And we have to make sure that we are, thinking about those things consciously, right, and ultimately empowering ourselves, and we become this force that is this mass movement, right, that challenges and transforms us and helps us, really think about those existing power relations that we have in society. So it's important, therefore, for us to think about how we, show up and what we're doing and how we can overcome some of those things that, may be pushing us back when we're thinking about advancing it and getting out of our own way.
Let's talk a little bit about with this question. I want to put a little spin on it. Mm-hmm. What about in spaces where women have opportunities to make room for other women, and they have opportunities to promote or to sponsor other women? Do you believe that the lack of being able to do that in these spaces contribute to a lack of movement and progression in leadership as well?
I think it can be. Was that? Oh, sorry. I think I heard my echo. Sorry. I heard my echo and I thought it was Dr. McCrae saying things. So stop. So I was like, oh, wait, I didn't even know we're talking. But yeah, I think it can be. So I think if we, and I tell women in our organization all the time, is that we have to be the ones to stop the biases, right? We have to be the ones who step up and start to support and help our other fellow women and especially if you think about women of color specifically, because, if we're not the ones to help them, and we have to be the ones to change that mindset for those who don't look like us and for men who can be advocates for us. So if we take the time to actually help and support, mentor, sponsorship is huge, and we don't do enough of it. We do mentoring, which helps. Mentoring helps, but being able to stake your career and claim on someone else that's coming up behind you is crucial. And that is what happened all the time in the corporate world and in nonprofit, for-profit organizations. Everywhere you look, that happens. And we don't do that enough for each other. And I think we have to be aware enough to step up and say, hey, I need to support and sponsor and be able to help remove some of these roadblocks, help remove some of the biases that are out there about women in leadership roles?
And the reason why I asked is I have a personal story, right? I believe, for me, this is my personal story. A lot of things that were kind of hindered my growth in leadership were tied to women who had the authority and to put me in a position or make space for me, and they chose not to.
That's where I was about to go. Yep.
Either one, they were intimidated by my knowledge, my skills, and my ability, or I didn't fit in their build because of, I guess, personality differences. However, let me just say this. My experience, even to matriculate into human resources, I remember interviewing, and this one lady, she interviewed me, and she was a Caucasian woman, and she was very fond of me. And she said to me, Alicia, you're very smart, and I could see us doing so much together, in our department, but you have a master's and I don't, and I don't have any intentions on going back and getting my master's degree. And if I hire you, they may either A, give you my job, or B, they may require me to go back to school. And I'm not interested in doing that. So that was shot down, number one. Then number two, this one right here is mind blowing. I was working with an African-American woman, and we were working together, and I was looking forward to being mentored by her because she was so smart and so knowledgeable, and she was the director of the department. However, she did not have a master's in human resources. She did have a master's, it was in something else. And so everyone else had their degrees on their wall in their offices and in their signature right after their name, because that's customary, right, in a professional environment. And she asked me to remove my credentials from my name and from the wall. And so I did not know how to take that. I had just been on the job, maybe a week, if that. And so the coach, everyone else had their degree on the wall and name and signature. I say all that to say the things that happened to me were not men, they were by women.
Exactly.
And let me say this. She asked me to take my degree down and to remove it from my signature. And when I told her that I did, I sent it to her in an email. She let me go for insubordination. This was not a man. This was a woman.
Yeah.
And so in the life of my career, Eric, and I'm going to let you kind of chime in, Dr. McCrae, because I see you got something good to share.
Oh, no. You're in the vein. That's literally where I was going.
The people that have sponsored and advocated for me have within my career have mostly been men.
Yeah. They have always been men for me.
And so that's why I say, I pose the question, do we believe that we as women contribute to the lack of movement or progression in leadership? Are we stumbling blocks in our own path? Go ahead,
Absolutely.
Dr. McCrae, and share.
Absolutely. It's a crab in the bucket mentality because there is not a lot of opportunity for women to advance. When they do advance, it's like, well, I can't uplift her because she may take my job, or she's more qualified than me. Even having a doctorate degree in my job means nothing. It means nothing. So it means something, in the educational field, but it means nothing on my job. So it's very hard. It's already hard enough to get to those spaces. And you would think that we would all be sisterly and say, hey, if I can do anything to assist you, I will. But truth be told, like you said, Alicia, people are intimidated. They feel like you're way more qualified than them. And if they bring you on, then you're going to take their job, and all of these different things that we shouldn't even be thinking about. I don't think about any of that when someone asks, hey, can you do this for me? Or do you know this person? I'm always ready to celebrate my sister. Because what God has for me is for me. I don't care about your path. And if I can help you, well, I do care about your path in the sense of I can help you to get there, but I'm not worried about where God has placed you because I know I'm on a different path. So it's often very frustrating because you have the power. you can change the dynamic for so many people. But I don't know if it's just the authority. Sometimes, I mean, maybe it's something that we don't see at the top. I don't know, but what I'm seeing from my vantage point is a lot of, like you said, intimidation, stability. They feel like there won't be any stability if they bring someone else on, and it changes the dynamic of the team. So it's all of these different components, but it really boils down to a crab in the bucket mentality. And we have to just come up in our thought process and encourage and push each other to greatness. And that's not happening a lot. And as a result, we're seeing this constant spiraling of no diversity. And we're looking at the men and saying, hey, it's your fault. And it's like, we have to take a little bit of ownership of that, because we definitely contribute to that mindset.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Burton, I see you want to say something. I got to hear what you have to say about my experience.
No, you know what? It sounded like mine is what I was going to say. Truly. I mean, I was in a similar situation where I was so excited about an opportunity to be underneath this particular leader who was senior vice president, right, in the group. And I was so excited because I heard so many wonderful things and stories about her, and she was a Black woman. And I'm like, yes, I finally get this chance, and it was totally not the experience at all that I thought. I thought I was going to be able to be mentored and coached and developed and all these things that I felt like I had missed in the past. And it was not that way. I actually saw the opposite. I saw most of the time that she would coach and develop and support people that did not look like me. And that was a little disheartening. And so I made a conscious decision and effort that when I left that particular role, that I would never do that, especially once I got into the position I was in, that I would, just like you were saying, Dr. McCrae, what's for me is for me. So if I see someone who's talented and someone who is looking and eager and hungry to become something or to advance in their career, I'm the first one to say, how can I help? I'm always that person. How can I help? How can I help you get to where you want to be? It has nothing to do with me, because whatever it is that you're going to do, your path is going to be successful, and so will mine. Whatever I choose to do. But I had that same experience, and every single person that ever rooted for me or who vouched for me in a room when they were doing talent review meetings have always been men. And I don't, and it's so, I'm like, how do I change that dynamic? I don't want to be that person that someone was looking up to and then I disappointed, right? I don't want to be that person. I want to be able to help, just like these men. Unfortunately, it hasn't been women, but these men have helped me. So I'm like, I want to reach back, and I particularly look for women to help and support. So it just, when you were telling your story, it just reminded me, because I had the same experience where someone asked me, because I said in my voicemail, you've reached the desk of, Dr. Autumn Burton. And someone was like, well, can you take doctor off of your voicemail? Just like, and I'm like, if that makes you feel comfortable, whatever, and of course, in the academic, world, that's, no one would ever tell you to do that. But in the corporate world, it was like, it meant nothing there for them. And it was just interesting. And it was a woman at the time who asked me to remove it from my voicemail, which was, so your stories all resonated with me, because I was like, oh my God, I went through this.
So I had a guy that, so he, when I started my career with AT&T, he was one of the VPs in the area that I was in. And he has, literally, I talked to him, I think last month. He will call me. He's getting ready to go get his PhD. He's like, what did you do? So we talk all the time. He called me the other day, and I didn't realize he called my work phone. And then I called him. I said, you're going to have to get my personal number, because I don't hardly pick this one up, because everything is like Microsoft Teams and all of that stuff now. And he said, you need to put Dr. Erica McCrae on your voicemail. I don't know why it's not on there. You've been a doctor for almost 3 years. So just to hear, some of the examples that you guys are given, like, I don't know, in this point of my life, I am standing up for myself, and it is what it is. If what I'm doing makes you uncomfortable, guess what? You need to check yourself, because we work too hard to get to where we are. I mean, getting a doctorate degree was arduous. Oh my gosh. It was one of the roughest things I've ever done in life. So you will not tell me, and it's, as a Black woman, hey, you need to dim your light.
Yes. And I think this is the time now that we become advocates for ourselves, that we don't dial back, and we make sure that we're in spaces that we can show up as our entire selves, and we're welcome in those spaces. And I think it's just unique for us to have these type of conversations, because you never know who our stories may actually help and encourage, and someone else is out there. So organically, I want to talk about the exposure to fast tracking women to the executive leadership and C-suite. What does that look like from your point of view? If you had to create a plan and put women on a fast track, and what does this plan look different for women of color?
So I actually had an opportunity to be a part of a leadership program that my job implemented. I didn't even know about it until I came back from maternity leave. It's the Executive Black Leadership Experience. And it was a really great experience. It was great to be able to come together with, people of the same race, to be able to talk about leadership and how to get to where you needed to go. But I will say, sometimes we isolate ourselves in boxes, and I don't necessarily feel like that is always the best method, because again, no matter what color I am, I'm still, qualified for these different things. So for me, I don't feel as though it needs to be different for women of color. I feel like it needs to focus on the equality piece. And what I have learned, and I have an amazing boss, and I always give him kudos, but I'm able to be super transparent with him on where I am in my journey. So recently I had my appraisal, my review, end of year review. And I told him how appreciative I was of all of the different opportunities that he's provided for me. But my role is kind of transitioning a little bit. So for me, and when I was getting dressed earlier, a guy kind of told me, are you going to pursue a promotion, or are you going to pivot to purpose? So for me, that looks a little bit different now for me. So I'm more so leaning into entrepreneurship, and I'm still working my job, but there will come a time where I'll have to pivot all the way to, where God is taking me. So I feel like it's different for everybody. And like the conversation that we just had, we have to speak up and we have to advocate for ourselves. So for me, with my boss, is saying, hey, this is where I am now. This is the support that I need from you. And this is where I'm trying to go. Like I told him, that I said, before I leave this company, I have to go to Summit. Like that's our leadership thing. I said, so I need you to help me to get there. Whatever projects and stuff you need me to work on, give me that exposure so I can get to where I want to go. So I think verbally telling our boss what we want to do, where we're trying to go, and how we need them to help us to get there is, for me, a fast track.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for that. What about you, Dr. Burton?
Yeah, I was going to say, just like Dr. McCrae was saying, she was a part of a program. That's where I think we have to start. We at McKesson, we make sure that we have things in place that helps us identify who those high potential women are, and that's through like our talent review process, etc. But we also have, for those who have self-identified in our systems, we know if there are, women who are indigenous people, or if you are Black, African American, Hispanic, Asian, whatever the case may be, of color, we know that, and we also know by gender. So we do have those identifiers that help us know that when we're going through the talent review process, right, those are the things that even though we've identified you as high potential, we now can look and see, okay, now there's an extra layer. So there's programs where we help, to develop those women, and bringing women along through those programs will get them on that fast track to, getting to the executive team. And then now that we're so conscious about making sure that diversity is threaded through everything that we do, that inclusion is a part of everything that we do, it helps us to know who those people are, so that, you can stand out, and that you're not being, pushed back because of something that, a bias or something that stood out, that did not get you to that next level. So it's important to have those type of programs, and we do have those, and I appreciate those, because those do help you move along the way.
Dr. Burton, does your programs that you guys have for women, do they kind of provide a surefire, hey, you're going to get this job if you go through this program, or is it more so just centered around development?
It is kind of both in both cases. And the reason why I say that is because if you're a part of our high potential program at McKesson, the idea is that you're going to the next level. That's the whole point of why you're high potential. You don't get to high potential, which is only about 10% of our population, by the way. So, you have 70% or what we call core talent. And then you have those that are, in the middle that we call promotable. And then you have those that are high potential. If you're high potential, the idea is that you're going to the next level, whatever that is, right? And hopefully it's some type of executive or C-suite role at some point. So the programs have intent. So it's about development as well. You get the opportunity. And we have programs that are not considered high potential, but they're just development programs. But this specific one that I'm thinking about, this specialized program, it is specifically to fast track those people.
Gotcha. And we have the same at my job too. We have, strictly just development. We do have like a hypo list. That's what they call it. But it's also like so secretive. So you don't really even know if you're on it. So it's like, okay, how do I know what I'm doing if I don't even know what list I'm on? So it's kind of, frustrating at times for people to really focus on that, because they don't even know where they are. Yeah. And that's why for me, I'm like, I need to let you know where I am and where I'm trying to go. So whether I'm on this hypo list or not, you know where Dr. McCrae stands, and that's what it is for me. So yeah, but that's great to know.
Yeah, no, you know what? It's so funny. I hear people say that all the time. And I was with a company before that this list was always secretive as well. We're not that way at McKesson, because here's the thing. What does it cost a leader to tell you that you're high potential? Literally, what does that cost you? It costs you nothing. But what do you gain from that? Now, Dr. McCrae is like, oh, shoot, I'm on this list. They think I'm high potential. Let me keep going. It gives you that motivation to do even better than what you were already given. So it's like, that you are already doing, right? So it's like, what does it cost you just to tell you that, hey, you're high potential. You're on this fast track to become, whatever it is that you desire at this point. And so it's so interesting to me that most companies do have that as this secret society. You don't even know your high potential when it costs you nothing and you get the gains of telling someone that can be, exponential. So
exactly, it can boost their confidence, and now you have someone that's working 120% for the project or whatever. So I agree with you on that. It's always been this just secret society, and everyone's trying to get on this list, but no one knows that they're on the list. Right. So I'm over here like, you know what? I'm just going to pave my own way, because trying to be a part of this secret society is just not working for me.
Right.
And one of the things, and I'm so glad that you all shared about the different lists that women can kind of go on, the way, and some companies are transparent with the list and some are not. And so with the transparency, it allows people to see their career pathways, and understand, okay, this is how I can move and navigate the space within my company. But when it's not, it leaves a lot of room for guessing and assumption. not knowing how to lean in and move and navigate in those spaces. And women, because especially women of color, we don't have a lot of those tools provided for us to help us navigate in corporate America. And when I talked about it at the beginning, let's look at the data, right? And so the data says that 41 women out of I guess 500 CEOs of the Fortune CEOs, 2 of them are African American women. So the data says there's a lot of work to be done, and the track and curriculum that's needed for women of color has to be different because we have different issues. We have different systems that prevent us. We need different types of training. We need different types of exposure. Just we were talking about our women issues and stumbling blocks, but we need to continue to have conversations that are that develop us to become these C-suite women that learn how to advocate for one another, that help us learn the true art to sponsorship, the true art to collaboration and mentorship in the spaces, and the true art to personal and professional development. And so that brings me to one of my next question. What does personal and professional development, how does this fit as a tactic to advance women into the leadership pipeline? I'm going to say, because I'm an advocate for it. One of my Gallup strengths is being a learner. And I think we have to always know things are changing. None of us have ever led through a pandemic before, right? No, none of us have even worked through a pandemic before. Social issues that we've had, this year have been unbelievable, and how we've had to lean in to have these different conversations to help us navigate this space. So talk to me a little bit about, personal and professional development. I know we've spoken about it a little bit tonight, but just talking about it as a tactic to advance women into the leadership pipeline.
Do you want to go, Dr. Burton?
Yeah, sure. So I was going to say, it's interesting. I was doing research and I saw that most people, when they talk about leadership, right, and they talk about who, what are the characteristics of a great leader? They use words like empathy and trustworthy and motivator, right? They use all those words. No one is saying the great leader is the person who got us, grew revenue 20%, or the person who, it's nothing about the business per se. It's all those personal and professional, those characteristics.
Soft skills. Yes.
Yeah, those soft skills. So when you talk about development and a tactic to advance yourself, absolutely 100%, you have to develop those things. You have to develop those soft skills. You even have to develop some of those professional skills if you want to move throughout, in the company, maybe do something different. But personally, starting with those soft skills, that is the number one thing. If you don't know how to lead and motivate a team and lead with empathy, you'll never get to where you want to be.
And let's talk about communication. Yeah. The different layers of communication, the different layers of negotiation, being able to lead a team from those perspectives, those are very important things to show up in certain spaces to be categorized as a great leader. You were getting ready to say something, Dr. McCrae. Go right ahead.
So I agree 100%, but I also want to give the other side to this. So my dissertation was built around one person that made my life completely horrible for about 2 years. And so I'm prefacing this to say that oftentimes, as much as we have personal and professional development programs within our jobs, they focus on numbers a lot of the time. So you put someone in place that does not have those soft skills, and now you have a team that's in disarray, but you're getting numbers per se from the leader that you put in place. So with these professional and personal development programs and all of the different things that we go through, I really want the companies to channel that and really look at who's going to be an overall great leader and not so much focus on the numbers, because you can really get yourself in trouble. We had a whole team that was working on a merger, and that person was not a good manager at all. To the point that people that had been with the company for several years, way more years than me, because I had just started, were considering quitting the business. So we have to, as women, it is super important that we focus on our personal and professional development. But I feel like we're also somewhat at a disadvantage sometimes because they're focused on, well, this person has been with us for, 5 more years, 5 years more than you. And, this is their data. And sometimes leadership is not about that. Like I had about 3 to 4 interviews. I interviewed with 2 women. I interviewed with the top African-American in my company. He's on the executive board of the CEO. And I got all the way to the top and I was number 2. And I was told that the person that got the job was just slightly more qualified than me. And then me doing my due diligence, I went to LinkedIn, I did my research, and I'm like, how? So a lot of times you go through all of this personal and professional development, and then you get to this point where you just know that you're the person for the job and you still don't get it. So as much as we focus on that, and I agree 100% that we should, there still needs to be a mindset shift in the companies as it relates to qualifications and who's the best for the job.
So that goes back to my uniqueness coming from an HR perspective, right? I have to, because I am a networking consultant, I have to lean into the fact that professional and personal development looks different for different people and at different spaces where you are. And so sometimes what the company may offer you may be packaged differently than what you can get outside, because you kind of know where your growth places are and where you need to kind of develop outside. So you don't have to just only lean into what the company provides, but also externally, something that may allow you to show up differently in the space. Now, there's a totally different way of networking, and that's where the advocacy and the sponsorship piece comes in, where you have someone already sponsoring you prior to you coming to the interview. And that's just how it's a part of the space. And a lot of times we as women, we don't know that because we haven't spent that time in a development program or opportunity, a space that they talk about having a seat at the table. What does that look like? The importance of having someone say your name when you're not in a room, and being able to say, oh, okay, I can vouch for this part. That's called a sponsor.
Absolutely.
The mentor coaches you to the place, but the sponsor uses their influence to get you to the next level. And it's so pivotal that we start doing that for one another, so it's not challenging, and having someone to say, go to the things that happen after work, the happy hours, the after 6, because a lot of times that's where those networks are made, those opportunities that you don't hear about, and so they kind of show up already going through the interview just for formality, right? And so here you showing up with your whole self, you sweating, you done practice and rehearse and doing well on the interview, and you got this stellar resume, and you can't figure out, well, why did this other person get the opportunity over you? And it was the one thing, they went to the afterward network event, heard about the opportunity, and it was something small that particular person liked about what that person said, and that person became a good fit for the role, And so those are the office politics that are not taught in the inward or internal professional development programs. But when you go to the external professional development programs, that's what we're talking about. And so Absolutely. I'm so excited about the Red Dress Brunch Women's of Power Leadership Retreat, because we will have CEOs of large companies and VPs of large companies that will pour some of that into us. And we can have those real robust, transparent conversations that help prepare women of color and women for the next level. And one of my favorite workshops is taught by Dr. Emily Massey, and it's talking about women should be seen and women should be heard professional presence. And I believe that it's going to be a wonderful workshop. So those of you that are watching tonight, we are retreating and we're brunching in June this summer. So if you have never been to the Red Dress Brunch, you want to make sure you come, because it is the networking in red event of the year here in Atlanta. And we have added a leadership retreat component to it to help with professional and personal development. And I myself will be talking about the T of networking, and I can't wait to share that with women. And then we have some other, you talk so much about empathy tonight. We will have a person, Keisha Fairweather, who is a leadership consultant and coach. She will be talking about empathy. And then we also have someone talking about a seat at the table, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's going to be a phenomenal retreat. So if you've never heard about it, go out to the Red Dress Brunch website and register today. Well, this is our time. I want to thank my guests so much for joining us tonight. We had a wonderful conversation about women in the pipeline. But before you go, please tell everyone how they could follow you, or any lasting words about women in the pipeline that you want to leave us with, and how they could connect with you on social media.
You can go ahead, Dr. Burton.
I was going to be really short because I only have one platform. So you can follow me on LinkedIn, Autumn Burton, PhD. My parting thoughts to that is that, I am, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the conversation. It has been phenomenal. And I want to say that women, as we continue to develop our own personal skills, and one thing that Dr. McCrae said earlier, don't dim your light. I love that. I'm taking that with me. Don't dim your light for anyone. Stand out, show who you are, show that you have the skills, the capabilities, and to get to where you want to be, continue to work hard. And I know we do, and I know it sounds like a little cliche to say, because everybody says just continue to work hard, but show what you can do. Show that you are, that person that can be who you want to be. And last thought. And then once you get there, take somebody with you.
Bring somebody else up. Yes.
So go ahead, Dr.
Absolutely. I have LinkedIn, Erica McCrae. You can find me on Facebook at Erica McCrae, and on Instagram at Lady McCrae. And I will leave you with what I posted on International Women's Day. And that is, sometimes we don't even need the table. Wherever God plants you, pull that seat up and dominate the space respectfully. So no longer are we worrying about a table. Where God plants you, you pull your seat up and you dominate the space, because we are to, like you said, advocate for ourselves and push each other to purpose. So once you get there, again, like Dr. Burton said, reach back down and lift your sister up.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight at Women in Blazers. We'll be right back here next Wednesday at 7 p.m. We look forward to continuing these conversations, during the month of March, which is Women's History Month. So make sure you subscribe to all of our channels, and we'll be right back here next week. Good night.
Good night, everyone.